So welcome, MagMod community. This is Timothy Irick here with our September version of How I Shot It and featuring Erika Mann, I'd say the better half of TwoMann Studios. And too bad is Lanny around. He could always poke his head in and say hello as well. No, not today.
Out with the kids.
Out with the kids. Awesome. Wonderful. So, yep, this is Erika Mann of TwoMann Studios. She's been gracious with her time to give us a little bit of time to speak about some of her images and kind of tell you guys how she shot them and kind of give you behind the scenes and some of her creative thought process in regards to creating those images. So welcome, Erika. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, first thing I'm going to set everybody straight on is that I'm not creative at all. Okay, so I'm not a creative photographer. Lanny and I are both sort of the same with this regards. We more like to react to what's happening in front of us and document the reality of sort of what's unfolding before our eyes and do that as best we can. So we're not usually creating or fabricating scenes to create something creative. So that's the first thing I'm going to say about Lanny and I and our approach. What am I supposed to be doing? Introducing myself.
Yeah, just talking about yourself a little bit. How long you've been shooting? What do you love about weddings? Maybe tie that into how MagMod has changed the way you guys kind of shoot a little bit. So.
Okay, so Lanny and I have been shooting professionally for about 6 years. What do we love about weddings? Actually, we find weddings kind of boring. Actually, I mean, it sounds weird to say that as a wedding photographer, but weddings themselves, I find boring. They're like scripted, predictable timelines that follow a set of pageantry events that I find rather mundane to do weekend after weekend after weekend. So that's actually been a big part of shooting the way we shoot and why we shoot the way we shoot, which is sort of looking and searching for all those little moments in between the moments and the people and the personalities and the relationships, because we don't find that stuff boring. We find weddings boring, but we don't find the people that are involved in weddings boring.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how you mentioned that, it's amazing because when you look at your images, you don't get that at all. You feel like all of your clients are like the biggest partying, have fun, just having a great time type of clients, and not that whole timeline restricted pageantry. The moments aren't happening. So yeah, your work really portrays that really well, which is awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, we just really try and get sort of below the surface of that pageantry and focus on that. Focus on the transitions. Focus on the little personality traits, little hand movements, the little subtle little things that are often hard to see on the wedding day, but the real story. What else? We also shoot our kids a lot. We've been traveling around the world with our kids for the past year, and you can see that at mansaroundtheworld.com. We love shooting them in all different adventures and landscapes around the planet. And that's about it for TwoMann. And Lanny Mann is my other half, and he's out with the kids right now.
Definitely.
Yeah, and the photos that we're going to go through today, I was trying to find ones that I knew for sure were mine. There's one of them that might be Lanny's, and Lanny edited all of them, and he like every single photo is part me and part him. So just know that going into this video that it's a team effort for both of us.
For sure. So Erika, talk a little bit about how you guys started using MagMod and how it may have changed how you guys shoot in regards to your portraits or your receptions or even just weddings in general.
Yeah. Okay. So MagMod. Sorry, I woke up with a cold this morning, so I got this runny nose. So MagMod was a game changer for us when the MagMod came out. So we generally use MagMod from the reception onwards. We don't use it a ton for portraits. Natural light is always our first choice, but MagMod has created opportunities for us to use flash in a way that sort of mimics natural light a lot more than naked flash. So it really comes down to problem solving Like we aren't using it for super creative reasons. We haven't really got into what are those filter things you guys have that project like patterns onto the wall?
Oh yeah, the beam. Yeah, kind of the
Yeah, like
gobos. Sure.
yeah, we haven't really got into that. It really basically comes down to problem solving. Like, how can I tell this story that's happening over on this side of the frame at the same time as I'm telling this story on the other side of the frame, but they're in completely different lighting conditions? How can I combine those two stories together? And the MagMod lets us do that. It also helps us keep the ambient light that we want to keep in the room, like the warm backlight or the uplights that they have around the reception. With the MagMod on, it just funnels the light exactly where we want to go. Because, I mean, often as photographers, we think we need so much light, right? We're like, oh, more light, more light, more light. But it's not so much the quantity of light, it's the quality of light, right? And in a photograph, the absence of light is just as important as the presence of light in certain parts of the frame, right? So MagMod allows us just to paint the light where we want it, as opposed to completely destroying our ambient exposure. We're often underexposing to extremes, and we want that darkness in the other part of the frames. We want that absence of light, right? So the MagMod allows us just to put it right where we want it and not destroy everything else in the frame.
So saying that, would you say, what products would you say you use the most? I'm guessing the grids are probably one of the more abundant usage in your bag in regards to creating your images. Do you typically use just one grid or stack them? How do you use your grids?
I'd say the MagMod is 90% of the time used indoors, 99% of the time, with one quarter cut CTO grid gel. Let me start over. One quarter cut CTO gel and one grid. That's our setup 90% of the time when we're using the flash, whether it's for speeches, getting ready, dancing, whatever it might be.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. So let's jump into these images real quick. I'm going to start sharing my screen here and kind of go from this first one. So Erika, we're just kind of start off with the first one. Let's kind of talk about how you set your lights up, what your vision was in regards to where you wanted the light coming from, what you used. I'm guessing it's the CTO with the grid pretty much on all of these images. And so just kind of walk us through how you set this up, how you thought about the shot, then how you executed it, if you could.
Okay, so this shot, this is one of the shots that I'm not sure. It could be Lanny's, it could be mine. This wedding was, I think, in 2015 or 14. I can't remember whose it is, but
don't give Lanny the credit. Just accept it. It's yours.
Accept it. Okay, so you can see this is a reception venue, and it's got beautiful ambient light, right? It's got these warm and cool uplights all around the room. So we don't want to destroy that. So that's why we have the grid on the flash, okay? So if we took the same shot without the grid on, the light would spill everywhere, right? And it would bounce off the wall behind the speaker. It would bounce everywhere, and it would destroy that nice warm ambient light that we have in the room. Okay, so I'm shooting from the end of the table here. What you see in the foreground is just a whole bunch of wine glasses and candles and centerpieces. And the reason they have that nice sort of bokeh effect is that there's candles in there that are reflecting off the wine glasses. And then I have my flash. If you sort of draw a straight line from my camera to the speaker, and then a 90-degree angle out here, this is where I have my flash. Okay, so I'm shooting from here, the speaker's here, and my flash is over here. So when we're shooting with our flash off camera, we always want it to be way off camera. We don't want it to do, like, I don't see any point of shooting here and having my flash right here. So I want at least that 90-degree angle to create that nice sort of dramatic light coming in. I will also say, not in this case in particular, but in similar situations, when we have these nice wine glasses and sparkly things on the table that we can shoot through. If there's no light on them, like if there's no candles, we will sometimes take an additional flash with a MagMod and usually a more of a funky colored gel. And we'll have the one flash on the speaker, and we'll have the second flash on those wine glasses right in front of us. So they'll create like this bokeh foreground for us.
Nice. So when you set your flash up for the, I'm assuming this is either the groom or best man giving a speech of some sort.
Yeah.
Do you have someone holding that for you and then moving it as needed, or you just set it up on a stand and just kind of put it in his direction?
That's a good question. I should have said that. Yeah, so we just use a light stand, and we'll move it around throughout the speech. It's really, sorry, there's a fly in here. It's really, our flash work doesn't really involve any math whatsoever. It's basically, we look at the back of our camera, we see if the flash needs to be turned up or turned down or moved slightly to hit where we want it to hit. The light stands we use are just really, I think I got one here, really small, just the smallest kind of light stands we can get. And then another key piece of equipment that we use in conjunction with the MagMod is I don't think I have one here, but it's a little ball and socket joint that we put on top of the flash stand. It's called a NovoFlex Cold Chew. You can Google it. Anyways, you can put your flash on it, and you can basically turn your flash whichever way you want with a very small adjustment.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, that's just, love this image. Super awesome with the foreground. And so if in regards to using the flash, if the candles weren't in those candle holders, so basically what you're saying when you're using the gels, if you wanted the orange bokeh that you see in the foreground there to be pink or blue, you could have easily made them that color by just flashing a low power flash through those with the gel.
For low power, sometimes the flash won't go low enough power, so we'll use one of those black
ND filters.
ND filters, yeah.
Yep.
To filter the light out a little bit more, or just back it up.
Nice, awesome. Well, that's amazing. Let's go to the next image. This one, love the energy in this image, and of course the way you've masterfully balanced your light flash balance with your ambient in the photo here. I'm assuming it's probably going to be pretty much the same type of premise. So talk a little bit about this one.
Okay, I'm trying to remember this one. Okay, so actually I think this one is a little bit of a different setup. I'm pretty sure what's happening in this one is that we've got a flash coming off from the side, like in the previous shot. But whenever there's particles in the air, whether it's champagne or rain or snow, in this case, this is a fake snow machine. It's like, which is actually just suds. And like, I started breathing these in the middle of the dance, and they get like stuck in the back of my throat. It was awful. Anyways, whenever there's suspended particles in the air, we think backflash, right? We always want that backflash to light up those suspended particles. So this is a side light. As you can see how the light is falling onto the groom's face. So it's camera right. And there's also a backflash being triggered as well. And that's what's lighting up the snow.
So you have two flashes for this image.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Are they both kind of camera right and behind, or where would you say the flash that's highlighting the fake snow? Is that directly behind the bride? Is that what's creating some of that highlight?
I believe it's, right down low behind the bride and groom. And when Lanny and I use this technique, whoever's in charge of the backflash, their job is actually harder than the photographers. They literally have to follow the couple around, hiding behind them or the dance floor or whatever, keeping that flash so that the camera lens doesn't see it, right? Because if the camera lens sees that flash, it's going to have a big flare in the picture.
Right, you're going to wash it out, put some flare in there.
Yeah.
So basically for these types of shots, either you or Lanny will handhold a flash and just kind of stay behind the couple, or depending on what's falling, just kind of create that backlight.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty simple setup. So when you're balancing for your ambient light, do you have a certain setting you start at, or do you just kind of take a few test shots to get it where you want it? and then kind of add the flash in. Can you talk a little bit about your process for that, for the people that are
Yeah,
trying
sure.
to learn
So
that balancing of your room light with your flash?
yeah. So that, well, it usually takes us about 3 to 4 songs to get our flash the way we want it. And there's no formula, honestly. There's no formula for a starting setup. We might start somewhere around 1600 ISO, 2.8, 1/160th of a second, probably is. But we're basically setting our ambient exposure um, for which before we even turn on our flash.
Right.
Okay, so for this particular image, we would have set our ambient exposure for the chandeliers and for the uplights. Okay, so we would have got our ambient exposure all set, and then we would have turned on one flash, probably the side one first. Figured out our settings for that, and honestly, Tim, like the first shot is whatever we left the flash on last time we used it. Literally is. It's like that's our first shot. Then we look at it, and it's like, does the soup need more salt or does it need less salt? We either take some out or we put some in, right? So it doesn't involve any math for us. And then we'll turn on the second flash. The real and we spend like a whole day, 2 days in our workshop chatting about this. So it's hard to sort of simplify it down to the half hour we've got here.
Of course.
But the tricky thing is when you try and adjust your ambient exposure at the same time as figuring out your flash exposure. Okay, that's when people get really frustrated, and that's when people are like, screw it, I'm just gonna go natural light. Or that's when people get flash anxiety, right?
Right.
Which I get flash anxiety. Actually, when I try and adjust those two exposures at the same time. So my recommendation is first adjust your ambient exposure. Don't even turn on your flashes, and then adjust your flash exposures one at a time.
Awesome. And so in regards to adjusting your flash exposure, how do you go about that in general? Because, as flashers, we know that typically our aperture controls the flash. So is your first go-to, if it's too much, is to drop your aperture up a little bit, or is it always just dropping the flash power?
It's always dropping the flash because I've already figured out my ambient exposure, right? And if I go and adjust my aperture, it's going to screw up the ambient exposure that I've already figured out.
Great.
So typically, I get my ambient exposure all set, and then I add in the flash, and then I just go up, or I go down, or I go further away, or I go closer.
Nice. Yeah. So that's a great tip, guys, that Eric is talking about. Is most people with flash, when they figure out the basics, the first thing they want to do, because it's easier, is to just adjust that aperture to either make the subject brighter or darker. But you got to remember that's going to, like Erika said, it's going to affect your ambient light as well. So if you're trying to keep that ambient, the first thing you want to do is like Erika said, is adjust that flash power either down or up, or move further back or closer forward. So if you have an assistant or you have a stand, kind of get in that mind frame of having that be your first option in regards to adjusting your flash power, as opposed to changing your aperture as the first thing, even though that's the easiest thing to do. And that, I think, will solve a lot of that flash anxiety that Erika just mentioned in regards to why is it not looking the way I want to, because I just had it right, and now it's my ambient doesn't look the right way. So to kind of start getting in that mind frame of adjusting your flash power or moving it closer or further back, and that way you keep that ambient to flash ratio closer to where you want it, which is a great tip. Thank you, Erika.
Another thing is it used to be easier to, flash technology is improving so much. Most everybody has a flash now where you can adjust the power ratio of your flash from your camera.
Definitely.
Right? And it just keeps on improving. So if you still have to go to your flash to adjust the power, I would recommend getting a new flash.
Getting something else for sure. Definitely. Awesome. Yeah. So we're gonna move on to this next image here.
This is what lens that was.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, I just saw that. A couple questions here. Yeah. So always in manual, Kate. Yes, flash is always in manual. Okay, because we want complete control and predictability, always with our flash. And if TTL, like, it's interesting because photographers get intimidated by manual. They get that flash anxiety that we all get, right? But manual is actually simpler than TTL because it's predictable. right? Once you get your settings figured out for the dance, like 2 to 3 songs in, that's usually what it takes Lanny and I. You never have to adjust it again for the whole night. TTL gets thrown off by like black tuxes and white dresses. You get inconsistent results. The recycle power isn't as good. So yeah, always only manual. Okay. This lens was likely the 16 to 35. We usually shoot with the 16 to 35 on the dance floor.
Awesome.
Okay.
I think you may have opened up another whole bag of worms with that TTL/manual conversation there. I know there's a big slew of people who are very big TTL. So I'm in the manual camp, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So at least for dance floor, honest to God, TTL is like useless on the dance floor. It is. It's super inconsistent, and you get 1 in 5 shots as opposed to 3 in 5 shots with the recycle powered flash.
Definitely. So, awesome.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about this one. Walk us through this one. This is beautiful. I love this image.
Okay, so this is actually the same wedding as the previous one. So what I'm shooting through here is a tree. It's actually a really gaudy, corny, awful piece of decoration in this hotel, and it's like one of these trees that's made out of lights, like really corny Christmas lights. But you know, right up against the lens, it creates this sort of, and out of focus, it creates these cool little bokeh balls. So basically, all we did is we just found the area of darkness, the darkest area. We stuck a couple there, and then we put flash with a grid pointed at the wall behind them. Okay, so, and we chose an extra warm gel on here. So this is probably full CTO, I bet. I can't remember exactly, but the reason we did that is because we wanted to contrast the warm and the cool tones with each other.
So were the lights blue already? So you knew they were blue, or did you adjust to make them blue so that you could warm them?
No, I didn't adjust. They were blue. They had that cool tone to them.
Okay.
But you could do that with your auto white balance,
right?
Or not with your white balance, right? Balance. You could adjust that. But they were cool to begin with. So in terms of the ambient exposure, before I turned on the flash, I would have just been adjusting my ambient exposure for those lights, right? I don't want them blown out. I just want them to be little bokeh balls like they are there. Then I turn on my flash. I put the couple in front of the wall, and then they're probably about 3 meters in front of the wall. And then Lanny's standing behind them, pointing the flash at the wall to create a bright spot around them.
Oh, so Lanny's ducked down behind them right there? I thought I saw his curly hair sticking out somewhere in there. No, I'm just messing with you.
I wonder if that is his curly hair, like right around
right there at the bottom? Yeah, it might be Lanny. So Lanny photobombed this image. That's awesome.
He did. Yeah.
Amazing. So, and then was this a fixed focal length, or was this your 16 to 35 just zoomed in to the kind of crop that you wanted?
That is a good question. No, I don't think it's 16 to 35.
It says 50 on the metadata, so.
Does it? Okay, so it's 50. Yeah, so it's probably 50 because I probably wanted to do, does it say 1.2 or? Yeah, because I think it does.
Yeah, 1.2.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would have wanted to go wide open to get that really cool effect with the foreground there. No.
So, nice.
It's the bokeh. Like if I'd done this with the 85, the bokeh balls would have been even bigger.
Okay.
And so the bokeh balls are related to focal length, but also aperture. So if my aperture had been like f2 or higher, the bokeh balls would be smaller too.
A little smaller. So yeah, this I think is another very signature telling style of your guys' work, is these foreground elements that create these amazing bokeh. I know you have a lot of images where you've had some like water droplets on branches, and you kind of created the same effect with that. And so for all the viewers out there,
through it. Yeah.
Right. So you're kind of the sun's backlighting through that in that aspect, I'm guessing, and then just creating those sparkly, those bokeh balls.
But you can do the same thing with a MagMod. Like you can do it with wine glasses, anything sparkly, as long as it has light on it. And then with the MagMod, you can put these, funky colored gels to create a foreground color of whatever you want.
Right. And then do you typically shoot these style of shots? Are you typically wide open just because you know that this is the effects you're going to get? How often do you vary between being wide open and being at like f2 for these
Yeah,
type of foreground
for
shots?
this type of shot, probably more often wide open for
Okay.
portraits. But
Awesome.
95% of the day we're doing photojournalism, and we're just documenting reality, right? The reality that's
Right.
playing out for us, and our default is probably more towards F4
Okay.
for the majority of the day, because we want the different layers
Definitely.
don't want big blurry things in the foreground, right? But for
Gotcha.
portraits, yeah, we'll
Awesome.
we'll generally shoot wider open for portraits because it's pretty.
It is.
And that's what portraits are about, right?
Being pretty and looking good for sure. Any questions about this image that you see from
Let's see
anybody?
so they're about 3 meters from the wall, and the flash is right behind them. Okay, so if the wall was right behind them, I wouldn't be able to get that cone of light to surround their silhouette there.
So you had to have some distance to be able to get that spread of light big enough to kind of be able to silhouette them in.
Yeah, so, yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Awesome. So this is, I think, is a great example of what you just kind of talked about, how you kind of shoot kind of at f4 so that that foreground image isn't completely blurred out and unrecognizable.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what you shot at here.
This one,
6.3.
6.3. Okay. So this
right.
This is a great example of problem solving. Okay, so here we have the bride getting her makeup done. The bride and groom, this was more of like an elopement, and so they were getting ready together in the same room. Okay, so the bride was in front of the window. That's where the makeup artists always go, right, to get the nice light. The bride was in front of the window getting her makeup done, and the groom was in the bathroom shaving. Okay, so of course the bride has beautiful natural light on her, but in order to layer the story of the groom, who's in the dark bathroom, I have to bring him up to the same exposure as the bride. Okay, so all I have is a flash coming in camera left on the groom. It's definitely got a grid on it, because if that flash didn't have a grid on it, you could see all the walls that are around him would be lit up as well. So having the MagMod on there just allowed me to just isolate the groom shaving and layer it together with the bride.
Nice.
So my ambient exposure would have just been for the bride's face. Okay, getting it set up for natural light with my shutter speed under 200th per second, obviously, and my aperture high enough to layer those two stories together. Because if the bride's just a blurry blob, there's no point in layering, right?
Definitely.
So getting my aperture high enough, getting my ambient so that it's nice light on her face, and then turning the flash on in the bathroom. It's just on a light stand, and then taking a shot, looking at it. Whoa, that's too high. Turn it down. Another shot. Oh, too low. Turn it up a few notches. There. And that's just shooting through the makeup artist's hands there.
Yeah, hands and head there, which is awesome. So another question I have, I know a lot of people, this is another kind of telling style of your guys' work, is that you have these layers and these stories. Now, was the bathroom just happened to be perfectly positioned where the makeup artist was getting ready, or did you kind of see the shot and envision it and kind of maybe adjust the positioning of them to where she still had light on the, with the natural light, but you were able to see into the bathroom to kind of create the shot the way you wanted to?
No. So we never stage or direct anything other than during portraits. And the reason is because, like I said at the beginning, is I can't make shit like this up. This is like, this just comes down to straight problem solving, right? And in terms of lining them up, it's really, if you've got your camera up against your eye, moving from here to here or from here to here makes all those little micro adjustments are what make the difference in being able to line up a shot like this, right? Definitely. And then waiting. Like I probably shot 70 frames of this.
Just waiting for that right moment.
Waiting for the right moment, shooting through it, and realizing that a lot of the time it's not going to work and it's not going to line up the way you want, but that's okay. Because Lanny was here shooting as well. Because, like I said, the bride and the groom were getting ready in the same room. He was in the bathroom actually with the groom, so I knew he was getting shots, and if it didn't work out, it was fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
now is this his reflection? Is he actually kind of behind the bride looking
Yeah,
into the
it's
mirror,
just
or is he facing
exactly.
this way with the mirror kind of behind the bride?
Yeah, no, sorry. That's the reflection of the groom on the bathroom mirror. Yeah, so the back of his head is facing, the back of his head is behind the bride there.
Behind the bride. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the layers that you guys get in your images and just the full stories. You just recently posted a wedding on your blog where it was probably one of my favorites you posted by far. Just the whole storytelling and the layers in those images were unbelievable. So we'll post that after the fact so people can check it out. What was that?
Okay. Well, and seriously, having a MagMod problem solves being able to layer, right?
Definitely.
Because often the two stories are in completely different lighting scenarios, right? One's in a dark room and one's in window light. And
Yep.
then it's not about creating or dreaming up something, because like I said, it's just reality, but it's using problem solving just to make it work.
Definitely.
In the camera. So.
No, amazing. Any questions about this image?
Let's see. Did you tell the groom where to? Oh, okay. Yes. No, didn't tell the groom where to shave. But you've got some time when the groom shaves, right? Like you've got a good 5 to 7 minutes usually. So
you're popping away.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it doesn't take long to get the lighting set up for a shot like this. Like once you get used to it, it's about 40 seconds. You can go from just shooting natural light to start incorporating the flash. But that's not going to happen unless you're using flash on a regular basis.
Right. So basically, this kind of shot comes with practice. So I'm sure you guys have done these types of shots enough where you kind of know where you want to be to start off. So it kind of helps speed that process up. Whereas someone who may just try this out this weekend, it's going to take them a little more trial and error just to kind of get what they want. And the fact of the matter with flash is the more you use it, the more intuitive it becomes on where you need to be for certain situations to help you kind of create that shot faster and be able to get there sooner than what you normally would be able to.
I find with any of these techniques, the learning curve is sort of you practice at home, then you bring it into maybe like an engagement session because there's not a ton of time pressure with those. Then you bring it into wedding day portraits because you can direct everything with those. And once you're comfortable with the mechanics of doing it in portraits, then you can start incorporating it into documentary, which I feel is the end goal, because I feel like this is just personally sort of my philosophy, but I just feel like the documentary images and the more storytelling images are the important ones. And it gets away from using the flash as a gimmicky photo tool that people are like, ooh, I wonder how the photographer did that, as opposed to creating an image where the people are focused on the story more than the photography technique, right?
Definitely. Actually, it's funny you mentioned gimmicky. I had a friend of mine that messaged me this morning kind of asking me my opinion about that. He kind of felt like, the flash has become kind of gimmicky. And I said, I can see where you feel that way, but I feel if it's done correctly by people who have, studied the craft and kind of perfected the craft, I don't think it's gimmicky at all. I think it definitely adds to the story through the day and allows you to be more creative and to tell maybe a more comprehensive story than you could without it. So I definitely think it's an important skill to learn. Even if you prefer natural light, you can always prefer natural light. I mean, I prefer natural light. It's just nice and beautiful, but I can light things if I need to, which allows you to tell the story that needs to be told. And if you use the tools to tell that story, then it shouldn't matter whether it's flash or natural light or whatever. It just should be telling the story for your client, which is nice.
And we always tell our workshop participants, like, why are you using the tool? Because there are many cases where the tools are used in a gimmicky way, and when you go deep down into it, there was no good reason to use it in the first place other than to show off that you know how to use that tool. So always just ask yourself, why am I using this tool, and is it serving a purpose right now? But that being said, it takes using the tools in sort of more gimmicky situations, like I said, to be able to use that, to be able to get the mechanics down so that you can use them in more meaningful situations.
Definitely, definitely. I totally agree. Cool. Let's move on to this image. Talk a little bit about this one.
Okay. So this is during the reception. Let me just see if I can get, there we are. Okay, so this is, yeah, during the reception, that's just the head table. They're listening to speeches. I think I've got a big lens on here. Oh no, I'm not, it is a 35, but I was fairly far back in the room. Or maybe this is Lanny's one. I can't remember, it doesn't matter. Anyways, shooting the head table here. The flash is off to the camera left. Okay, so the ambient exposure of this image would have been set just for those highlights, just for the highlights of the lights on the ceiling, which are reflecting off the glass behind them. Okay, and then we would have just brought the flash in to bring our bridal party up to the same exposure as those. Off to the camera left, and with a grid on it, for sure. It's fairly far back because you can see that it's hitting 6 people, so it's got more of a spread, but it's not destroying our ambient exposure. And then there was the image was still problematic because the bottom half of the image had just the tablecloth of the head table. There was no more lights to include on the ceiling. We could have gone closer, but then it wouldn't have included those lights. So we just decided to use our iPhone to reflect what was on the ceiling down below the bridal party as well.
Nice. Now it looks almost like this flash is, just based on the way it's hitting the florals on the table, almost kind of to the side, kind of scraping across them. Is that right? I mean, maybe not quite directly 90 degrees, but pretty darn close.
Well, there's someone, you can see there's someone sitting here. You can't see my mouth, but there's someone sitting way over to the left, and it's not hitting them at all.
This here.
Yeah. So, and it's quite possible that it was edited out as well. Gotcha. But it's the other thing.
Yeah, I've noticed there doesn't seem like a lot of spill onto the mirrors in the background either. Whereas with bare flash, you probably would have had a little bit of that reflection coming off the back of those mirrors.
Oh yeah,
as well.
You would have had that, and even with the MagMod, it's super easy to clone out if it's in the frame because it's literally like just a little dot. Whereas without it, it's a big flare, right?
Yeah, definitely. So we'll move on to this last image, and this one I think kind of goes along with what you talked about at the beginning about creating lighting for the story that you want to tell on this one side of the image, but making sure it coincides with the story that's being told on another side of the image that has a completely potentially different lighting scenario. So I love the way that you lit this. So talk a little bit about this one.
Okay. You probably, we cheated on this shot. This is like, that light that you can see in the frame is a video light, and it's the videographer's. It's the videographer's light. But you could achieve this with 2 flashes, right? So, the videographer's light, which is the flare that you see, is backlighting the speaker. And then the flash that is on the bride and groom is right behind the speaker, coming in camera right. And that's it.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. But you could achieve, we have done this before where we've had a light on the couple, like you see here, and a backlight on the speaker. Right.
No, I think this is great. Even though the video light is the primary source for the speaker, I love that you have to envision that this is how you wanted to light her, but then we're able to use the MagMod grids to just highlight the couple on the left-hand side and really have that dichotomy between this kind of dark frame on the right with the lighter frame on the left, but also just kind of having this full story without the background getting jumbled in or getting kind of noise coming in. It just really separates everything. So
it separates everything, and it gets the viewer's eye exactly where you want it to go.
Exactly.
Right? And that's like, this just shows the importance of the absence of light, right? That, if there were a big highlight behind the couple or in between the couple and the speaker, I mean, there are tables and chairs there, but the exposure is such that you can't see them. right? But if they were there, or if we didn't have a grid on the flash and it was lighting up everything, there would be too much light in this picture.
Definitely.
So,
So
yeah,
if you were to use two flashes, basically you could have put a flash where the video light is with a grid or two, probably a CTO gel hitting the speaker, and then you would
yeah,
have the light where you said lighting the couple would have been to the camera right, kind of off behind the speaker with a
yeah,
grid and pointing just on that direction.
yeah,
So you just
exactly.
happen to have a video light to help you problem solve this, but you could have created this with two flashes if you wanted to,
Could have, yeah,
which is
you
nice.
definitely could have. Yeah. So,
Awesome. Well, that's
cool. Any
awesome.
questions?
Any questions about this one?
This is exactly what I wanted to do at my last wedding. I failed miserably. Which one? What are you talking about, Daisy? And yes, we fail just as often as, like, you're only seeing our successes here, but don't compare here, because Lanny and I fail several hundred times on a wedding day.
It's so funny that brings up, because on the way to work this morning, I was listening to the radio. They were talking about today's National Read a Book Day,
Oh,
and
is
one
it?
of the things they were talking about was Dr. Seuss. In the first book he tried to get published, he had submitted to 27 different publishers, and they all denied the book, like they didn't want to publish the book. And
Wow.
this is Dr. Seuss. We all know who Dr. Seuss is,
Yeah.
and so I can't imagine failing in a sense of failing 27 times. You'd almost want to give up. But
Yeah.
it's funny that people see all these big names, like, you guys are at the top of your game, TwoMann Studios, and you see all these amazing images. And so people automatically assume that you just were amazing right out of the gate and you were successful right out of the gate, that they don't see all the failures that went into creating these amazing images and all the failures that went into getting you where you are. So I think that was an amazing lesson this morning on the way in, to kind of even remind myself that it's not so much the successes that shape you, it's the failures that shape you.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a lot more failures before you become successful. So don't get discouraged. You just keep on going, and you get where you're going to go. And obviously, it's you
Winston,
guys
my favorite quote is by Winston Churchill, and it's that success consists of going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm.
exactly.
And it's not like you stop failing when you're like, culling our work is depressing. Like, culling, he says it's like sifting, what does he say? It's like sifting for gold through a sea of shit. And it is. Like, I am so demoralized after I cull a wedding. Like, because, we shoot anywhere about 20,000 frames and we deliver 1,000. So that's like what, 2%? No.
Yeah.
I
No. Yeah. Like 20,000. Yeah. 10% would be 2,000. So it's like 5%.
It's 5%, and then we show the world. We blog 30 to 50.
Yeah. So 2.5% of that. So yeah.
So it's like 0.2% of what we shoot at a wedding
What you
is what
shoot.
we show. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
And I think
don't be discouraged. And if you're going to start incorporating more flash into your work, it's a game changer, and I encourage you to do it. But you got to be open to lots of failures. It's
exactly.
just gonna be the game. So.
And I think with the mindset with people that want to learn Flash and get better at Flash is, don't look at when you want to create an image and it doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to. You didn't necessarily fail. You didn't accomplish what your goal was, and you still accomplished something. What you accomplished is what not to do. So you still learned something. You still were successful on the fact that, hey, you went out, I tried this, didn't work. Now I know what not to do. I'm gonna try something different next time. So it's, even though it was a failure in that aspect, it's still a success in another aspect, because now you know what not to do. And I think that's the mindset that newer photographers, as they're getting into Flash, just kind of have to remind themselves that unless, very rarely do people go out and get it right away and just are able to create these amazing images right off the bat. You're going to have those failures and those mess ups and those times where it didn't turn out the way you wanted to. But you kind of keep pushing through and just remember, hey, this didn't work last time. I'm going to change this up and see if it works this time. And eventually you'll hit it on the head and you'll be like, and you'll get it down. So, which is nice.
Exactly. But I will say that if for those of you that don't use MagMod yet, like, your failure rate will go down when you use MagMod. Like, it makes it easier to achieve beautiful looking flash work. It does,
Definitely.
because you can you've got so many more tools at your disposal.
For sure.
So,
And even just the grids, being able to control that light and put it right where you want it. I know when I first started learning, before I really realized how grids worked, I was always like, man, I'm getting so much spill. Like, great, the couple looks good, but there's still so much light in the background and foreground, and it's not quite what I wanted. And then once I started learning how grids work, my bar just went up exponentially because my light was going where I wanted. Now the image I had in my head was coming to fruition because I was able to control where I was putting the light a lot easier than I was before creating, trying to feather it a certain way. So just the spill I wanted was hitting the couple, and that just got super frustrating in that aspect. So it definitely makes creating the images you want to create easier and faster than before. So awesome. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen real quick. We'll kind of finish this up here. So you also this is the second year, I believe, you're putting on the real life conference. Is that right?
Oh, yes. So for those of you that don't know, I run a conference for women photographers in November in Canmore, and it's called the Real Life Photography Conference. And our goal in that conference is lots of things. But one of the main things is we bring in photographers from all different genres, because I really feel like the best way to sort of break out of your creative box is to learn from people that are outside your box, right? Learn from people other than wedding photographers, or other than senior photographers, or other than portrait photographers. So we have huge diverse lineup of amazing women photographers. And yeah, that's going on in November. If you'd like some more information, you can go to reallifeconference.com. And MagMod is sponsoring someone to attend this year, actually.
Yes. All right. We'll have more information about that as October comes a little closer and that aspect. So we're excited to be a part, and excited for what Erika's doing for the industry, which is amazing. And I love what your comment in regards to learning from photographers that are outside your genre. I think in my own photography, in regards to weddings, I felt my vision and the way my work is changed once I started. I love street photography. So I started studying and just looking at a lot of different street photographers and just seeing how they layer their photos and tell the story. And then I really just kind of tried to incorporate that into my own work because I loved how they told the story. And, you would never think a street photographer would influence a wedding photographer, and it was a lot of like your famous portrait photographers. Trying to think, Dan Winters is probably one of my favorite portrait photographers, and just the way he lights really kind of influenced how I try to light as well in regards to different things during the day. So I think it's very important to think outside of your genre, for sure.
And I mean, if you think about it, it would be like a country music artist only ever listening to country music,
exactly,
right? Or Metallica only ever listening to heavy metal, and they get their influence. I mean, they're artists just like photographers are artists, but they get their influence from a wide variety of music. And not that wedding photographers don't have good things to say, they do, but it's last year's conference was life-changing for so many women. It's a space where struggles are turned into opportunity and success, and it was inspirational, but also very practical, and a really safe space with not a lot of ego in it, which is what I wanted to achieve with it, because
awesome.
I find there's a lot of no offense to the wedding photography market, but there's a lot of ego in this industry, and there's a lot of sort of rock stardom where there's like the people up here, and then there's everybody else, and it's like the rock stars, and I just wanted to break all that down.
Nice.
Everybody's on a level playing field there. Everybody goes out to dinner with all the speakers and has opportunity for one-on-one sessions and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, it sounds amazing. Makes me wish I could go. I'd love to be able to go, but I totally understand.
Dress and drag for a day.
Yeah, I could easily do that.
You might have to shave.
I might have to shave. Yeah, a little bit. I was trying out a new beard, kind of trying the new beard thing. See how it works. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it or not, but we'll see. But hey, guys.
There, and I'm like, no, you got to shave it off.
You got to shave it off. So I'm pretty sure my wife will eventually tell me it needs to go, but we'll see how far I can get before it goes there.
See how far you can get.
So again, guys, thanks for tuning in. We're gonna jump off here, and again, thanks to Erika again for taking the time to come out and kind of give your knowledge to some of our community base, and I hope they've learned something. This will be recorded, and it is being recorded. It will be posted on our YouTube page for later viewing, so people that want to view it again, or even didn't get a chance to view it will be able to. So
And
thanks again, Erica. We're going to jump off here, and yeah,
I'm going to say
go ahead.
one last thing. If you guys, Lanny and I don't have any secrets. Seriously, if there's any questions that you guys have after today, after watching this video, just send me a personal message or tag me in a comment, and I'm happy to answer.